Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bad Thought Studios. Today, I got the boys from OG 55 crew, George and OG. How you fellas doing today?
Fantastic.
Good.
Always a good time,
Good.
Tones. We appreciate you, brother.
Always good to have you guys on, guys. Today, we are talking about, of course, Disney. We're going to be talking about the state of Disney, and I want to get these two guys' opinions on, the good, the bad parts of, the parks, the studio side, the corporate side, stuff like that. We're also going to get into Moana 2. There's some news that came out today that OG has sent me about their pre-sale tickets, which I thought was really interesting, and also superhero movies. There's a lot of superhero movies and villain movies that have been coming out, Joker, Flash, stuff like that, and it just movies in general have been really weird when it comes to the superheroes, and I kind of want to get your guys' opinion on that. So we'll get into that in just a moment, but I'll start with George. Appreciate you for coming on, brother. If you could tell the people where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. And as OG said, thanks for having us on, Tones. It's always a good
Always.
time talking shop with you and all that good jazz. But anyway, if you'd like to find me on social media, you could do so on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is.
Beautiful. I like I said, we need him. I say this every time he says his lines. We need to make a shirt. We need to make a shirt
for sure. He actually, when we were at Disneyland, someone actually requested him to say it.
Really?
In person.
Did. Yeah, because she. Oh yeah, absolutely. Because she's a fan of the channel, and her friend, she was starting to like tell her about like what we do and everything. And before we parted, because they were going on Tiana's Bayou Adventure, she said, hold up. She said, before you guys leave, she said, you have to see this. Is so awesome. She said, can you please do your Italiano spiel? Yeah, sure. I said, just give me a few seconds to stretch. Like,
yeah, I know, right? So funny. Yeah, we're getting a shirt pretty soon here, guys. Pretty soon.
Absolutely.
OG 55. If you could tell the people where they can find you, please.
Yes, sir. You can find me on YouTube, Orange Grove 55, where we talk a lot about like Disney, the parks, the studio, very similar to the topics we're discussing today. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Orange Grove 55. And again, thank you, Tones, for having us on.
Always, fellas. Guys, I'm going to leave everything in the description below. Make sure you guys go check them out. Everything Disney you will find on that channel. So make sure you guys don't miss out. All right, guys. First topic today. We'll talk about the superhero movies that have been coming out. Not too good. Joker, not necessarily a superhero, but it's in the realm of those movies. We're getting a lot of the Marvel movies that have came out that not have been doing well. But I'll start with you, OG. What do you think is going on with these movies and why they're not doing so well in the box office? We did get Wolverine and Deadpool, which did well, did really good. But as far as that, not a lot of movies that have been coming out have been, this, jaw-dropping experience in the movie theaters. And what do you think? What's your opinion on this, and why do you think this is happening?
I think people are getting really particular or pickier when it comes to the theater going experience. You have a lot of options now. I mean, I can watch a movie on my phone anywhere I want. I can watch it at home. These movies are on streaming in just a couple of months. So you have to really sell it now. This isn't like the 90s anymore where you have to go to the theater to watch stuff. So I think that's what you're, excuse me. I think that's what you're seeing here. We're seeing a very similar kind of dynamic with animation, right? Where like movies like Wish and like Strange World, they fall flat, they flop basically. And then movies like Inside Out 2, and it's looking like Moana 2 is going to be a big hit. So there's an audience for this product, but I think they just want, I think they just want the right content, right? So yeah, people like superhero movies, but they're not going to go to every superhero movie just because it's a superhero movie. People like animation, but they're not going to go to every animated movie just because it's animation. So you just have to have the right movie and people will go. So I think all these genres and, the comic book movies and animation and whatever it is, I think they're all doing very well overall. I think people are still interested in those things, but you still have to deliver though with the content. You can't just throw Joker 2 out there and just be, it's an automatic $1 billion movie. You have to really, really sell the audience now, because, why am I going to spend $100 to go to the theater when in a few weeks I can see this on streaming?
And real quick, and to your point, Joker 2 came out, I believe it was like the 3rd of this month or the 4th of this month, and so it dropped in on platforms today for free to watch. Like less than a month after the movie was released, it did so bad that it is now on streaming platforms. Either today or tomorrow. I don't remember the exact date, but less than a month, which is insane to me. But go ahead, George. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine, bro. I think also too that's like the responsibility for these studios to kind of get a grip on like what content is best to release at what particular time. I do think it's a fast cash grab that they think is going to happen. It's like, okay, well, if Avengers did well, if Infinity War did well, Spider-Man No Way Home did well, it's like, okay, so as long as we have a superhero genre movie with a cape and tidy whiteys and all that stuff, it's like it's going to be $1 billion hit. But that goes to show you that that's not the case. And I feel like that they have put so many films in the pipeline when it comes to Marvel and DC that they kind of shot themselves in the foot, because like when you have films already in pre-production or even post-production, there's nothing you can do. It's basically you release it and it's like you hope for the best. And sometimes you get winners like Deadpool and Wolverine, and sometimes you get not so good winners like Joker 2. And I feel like there's also a way of where too much is detrimental, and we saw that with DC and how they approached a lot of things where they threw everything at us at once,
right?
Where they should have fleshed out each superhero, sort of how Marvel did. And even to now, Marvel is still taking a hit on that, because there's only so much you can do with the same superheroes over and over again.
Yeah, and another problem too with superhero movies, and Joker 2 didn't have this problem, but a lot of superhero movies do. And it's kind of the gift and the curse, right? Like the cinematic universe thing was like the biggest selling point for the MCU in the lead up to the end game. But the minute you have a movie that doesn't really hit, you kind of screw up the whole momentum of the whole universe then, right? Because you have this one movie now that flops. Well, that was one of the stepping stones for that whole storyline, that bigger storyline. So now the creatives have to kind of work around that. It leads to problems. Now, when it's running on all cylinders and it's successful and each movie's making $1 billion like it was pre-Endgame, it's all good. Everyone's having a party. But the minute you have a few in there that like Ant-Man, Quantumania, and things like that, it kind of messes up the whole batch, so to speak. And I think for these companies, I think the smart move is to sort of break away from overly connected universes. It's okay to have them. I don't think you throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? But you don't want to get too bogged down in that. It was very trendy a few years ago, but I think these studios really need to step away from that a little bit.
You mentioned Quantumania. Yesterday, they just released they released that it made $88,000. The movie made $88,000 in on the plus side.
Oh,
and it just happened, I guess, yesterday or something. I don't know. It was just so weird, but I agree. And the one thing that we loved before Avengers Endgame was what led up to it. To your point, everything that led up to Endgame, we got to see. Iron Man, Captain America. We got to see the standalone films, Thor, and it led up to the Avengers. And then we got the Avengers, and we seen what played out with the Avengers, and it ended. And to me, that was where Marvel movies kind of took a hit after.
That basically was the end game.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But they had a plan. They led up to they had the standalone movies, they had Avengers, and then they had the ending to Avengers. And we loved how it played out. But everything after that, we just don't know what the plan is. They tell us there's a plan, but we don't know who's going to be in it. We don't know who's alive, who's dead. We don't know what's canon. There's a lot of things that go into what the Avengers was, because we knew who was going to be in it. We knew what the villain was going to be. Like, we knew all this, but now it's just in a position where some people are so far out because they don't know where they have to catch up at. Like, there's so much She-Hulk, or these movies that are on Disney Plus that are shows. They don't know if it leads into the movies. Like, there's nothing that's been definitive to tell us that, hey, this is part of the the canon of the story.
And the rumor mill. Okay, bro.
Oh, I'll just say real quick that's another downfall for the cinematic universe, is that when you have a bunch of TV shows or streaming shows and a bunch of movies and stuff that are all connected, when people miss one or two of those things, they start to put off seeing the new stuff because I have to catch up. I didn't see She-Hulk yet, so I can't go see the new movie because I haven't caught up yet on the streaming stuff. And now you're shooting yourself in the foot theatrically, So that whole connected universe thing is really, like I said, the gift and the curse. Go ahead, Italiano. I do apologize, sir.
Not a problem. And I want to say, if you didn't see She-Hulk, you can get a rendition from it by watching Bikini Airways. But also too, the rumor mill, like through social media, as you hear a lot of these articles saying, "Oh, Spider-Man's going to make an appearance in Avengers Doomsday, and Doctor Strange is going to make an appearance in Secret Wars," where it's like nothing has been officially announced. We don't know, as Tones, you were saying, like, we don't know who's going to be in what, who's going to make an appearance, what the whole storyline is about. We do know that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to the MCU, but now as Doctor Doom. But in which way is the storyline going to play that would make sense for him to be Doctor Doom? And then, of course, we have Fantastic Four, which I am very much looking forward to. Fantastic Four. I think if there is a comeback to a superhero film, especially from Marvel, I think that would be the film that would kind of start off the new progression for Marvel to lead into Doomsday and Secret Wars.
Yeah, and I do want to preface this because I'll speak for myself, but I'm assuming you guys haven't read the comics either. There's a fine line between people who've read the comics and watched the movies and people who've just watched the movies. A lot of people who watch these movies have not read the comics, which isn't a bad thing. It's just, it is what it is. But I'm personally speaking of a person who has not read the comics, because you kind of want to see a storyline or something match up eventually. And to me, I don't see a vision of that yet, like we did with the first Avengers and the standalone movies. Now, people who've read the comics probably have an idea of where this story is going, which is amazing. Like, I'm not saying they're, if you haven't read them, it's a bad thing. But we knew the first time this happened, when, like I said, when the Avengers first came together, we knew about which storyline was going to happen. Like, we knew what was going to happen. And it doesn't look like we're seeing that specifically for Marvel. And DC is another thing. We don't know what the hell's going on with those movies either. Like, it's just another
mess.
It's a mess. Like, we got pretty decent movies, the Batman, and then we're getting the Penguin right now, but we don't know if that leads into future movies and whatnot. At least people who aren't extremely into this stuff like I am. But you didn't have to be with Avengers. You knew what was going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's just all over the place right now, in my opinion.
No, it is. It is. And I think they're just going to have, these studios are just going to have to do less, but have less movies, but have better quality movies, I think there was a kind of this thing for a while now where it's like just throwing everything out there for superhero movies, and now I think they got to scale it back and just make sure each one hits. And we'll see. Maybe James Gunn's Superman will be really good. I have high hopes for that one, actually.
Oh yeah, me too. And they did well. I'll speak for Marvel. They did well this year with only releasing one. They released one movie, and it did amazing. So let's hope they keep that quality over quantity kind of trend going. But yeah, Superman looks amazing. The suit, I remember I had some bad thoughts about the suit, but I've seen some more stills and pictures of it. It looks great.
Yeah, absolutely. I like how you said bad thoughts. That was a good branding, Tone.
Yeah, exactly. It was. I jumped the gun on that one. The picture that they initially released was it was like whatever. But it looks really good. The movie
I don't
looks
know.
really good.
I'm
A lot of
kind
high
of
hopes.
like, I think I mentioned this before. I can't remember if I mentioned it on here or if it was on Orange Grove 55, but I just feel like for me, the DC films are just a lost cause for me. Not just because I prefer Marvel over DC, but it just seems like how many more Superman movies are we going to get? How many more Batman movies are we going to get? I recently did the Warner Brothers tour in California at the studio, and one of the displays was the different generations of Batman, which was really cool. But I mean, when you got to see like how many different variations of Batman, you had Adam West's version of Batman, you had Michael Keaton's version of Batman, you had Christian Bale's version of Batman, you had George Clooney's version of Batman, you had Val Kilmer's version of Batman. It's just like how many you had Ben Affleck's version of Batman. It's like how
Robert
many more
Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson. Yeah, that was the last one that was after Ben Affleck. It's like how many more Batmans do we need? It just becomes monotonous, and I think that plays a hindrance where it's like when someone says, "Oh, a new Batman movie," it's like again, really? Like,
Yeah.
can we have something else? Now, I will say I didn't get a chance to watch it yet, but Ebba had said that it's a really good show that I would definitely dig. It is The Penguin.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
I'm
really good show.
loving the Penguin right now. The Penguin is probably the best thing on TV as we speak.
See, because you're
It's
then
really
taking
good.
the same kind of storyline of the same genre, like in the realm of Batman, but you're focusing on a completely different character.
Hmm
See,
And they're doing a
that I
great
think
job
is
at
the
it.
best approach to go.
Yeah, I even like the
100%.
old show from like I think it was like 2014 Gotham. I actually enjoyed that show quite a bit actually. I just ended up binging it like way after the fact, like a couple of years ago actually. It was fun. It's a fun show. Actually, the Penguin in that one, I liked him a lot. He was cool. Go ahead, Tom.
No, I was gonna say I gotta watch that as well. It's on my list, OG.
It's on your list. Okay.
Yeah, it's on my list.
I'm surprised I got Inside Out too. I mean, I actually watched that one. It was good, but yeah, I have a long list, and that one made it.
Yeah, well, I gotta watch it. Well, I watched it this weekend. I'll watch it this weekend.
Cool.
We'll get some. We'll get a episode on that going too.
Have you
'cause it
seen
did
the
so
first
well.
one, Jones? Inside Out?
No, I'm gonna watch both of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say watch them both together because actually Ebba didn't either. He watched both of them together.
And Abigail might shoot me if I don't watch those movies that she recommended. I will say this: the Coco movie, I still like to talk about. Like, it was such a inspiring movie. Like that movie was so good, dude.
As I
And I
said,
can't believe it took me so long to watch
it's
it.
my number one Pixar thus far.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're getting a Coco ride at DCA, California Adventure, so it's something to look forward to.
Hell yeah, dude! About time, right?
Yep, absolutely.
About time.
Yeah.
I remember you guys would always talk about something that
It should have been in there.
Yeah. Any last thoughts on this superhero topic before we go to the next one?
No, I just think that the studios, DC, Marvel, all these studios, superhero movies, I think there's a market for them. I really do. I think people still really love this stuff. You just got to release good content. They're just not going to go see anything. And then same goes for animation or anything else, you know. You have a very picky general public right now because they have so many options at home and what have you. You got to give them a reason to spend $100 in the theater, you know.
Basically, superhero movies is like the version of like if you're having sex. It's like know when you have to put it in, but know when you have to pull it out.
Yeah,
perfect analogy, George.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. I'm not even sure if the pull out really works, but we'll get into that on a
Oh, shit. But no, I agree with you. Like I made a TikTok about this, pretty much saying, should they stop making superhero films? And I answered my own question saying no, they shouldn't, because of course there is a market for it. Like you said, people want to see it. I want to see it. But I think the choice of movies that they're coming out with are very questionable, and we need to put the right amount of money and effort into movies that have done well and people loved, rather than trying to make, you know, what's it called? Create the wheel, if you will, like on other movies. You know what I'm saying? And the first one being said, or the first one that I wanted, Shang-Chi. That movie was so good, but yet I just got news that it was pushed back again. Like I don't know what's going on with it. It just stuff like that is like people love that movie, but yet we're not getting it, another movie until 5-7 years later.
That was actually the first movie I've seen in theaters after the pandemic.
Really?
Mhm.
And did you enjoy it?
I absolutely love that movie.
So
I feel
good.
like it was one of the best standalone Marvel, even though it's in the cinematic universe. But like until they come out with a sequel, it's basically a standalone at this point because you don't really know where it connects. You see
Yep.
like the like the end credit scenes and everything, but it's like you have nothing else more to go on but then just that film alone. And it's a shame really because they could really market that character.
Yeah. And he's an Asian descent character, which a lot of people loved him. Like he was a great actor, and he just killed the part. And run with that. Like that's a good way of marketing someone like him. And not just that, like we will potentially see him in Stranger Things, Jesus, Doctor Strange, because of the whole end credit scene. But his sequel should have came out a while ago.
100%.
But yeah, next topic, guys. OG brought this to my attention, and we kind of read this earlier. But Moana 2 sold more first day pre-sale tickets than Inside Out 2. Now, as we all know, Inside Out 2 is the most what's the word I'm looking for?
Biggest animated film.
Yes, the biggest animated film ever, if I'm not mistaken, ever. Had made the most money, and a lot of people loved it. Everyone was just talking about it. And I remember when it dropped, I think it was like the first weekend, they already broke records for animation film for ticket box office.
And even on Disney Plus, when Inside Out 2 broke all kinds of numbers, which I think it was like 31 million views the first day it released on Disney Plus.
Yep.
It was either the first day or like the weekend or something. But I kind of already had that anticipation that if Inside Out 2 was going to do those numbers, which no one really knew that it was going to be that big. We knew it was going to be successful. But for Moana 2, there's like a whole nother demographic for her. And that the first film was successful, but I felt like in time it progressed to where once streaming became available, Moana sustained that high top tier of like most watched on Disney Plus, and then incorporating her into like the parks with the meet and greets, and then the walkthrough attraction at Epcot, and then the announcement that they're doing a live action Moana, and now with the animated sequel, I could definitely see this doing obviously more bigger banger numbers than Inside Out 2, which we have the receipts, no pun intended.
Well, if Moana 2 is as good as Inside Out 2, then it'll leg out like crazy because people love Moana. I mean, we've been saying it for a long time on our channel. Like, this movie has potential to just do gargantuan numbers. Like, yeah, they just basically have to have a decent movie. Just have it decent. Just as long as it doesn't suck, this movie is gonna just boatloads of money, And we're seeing it with the pre-sale already. We're seeing it. There's a huge interest and demand for this, and that's what I was saying earlier with the superhero thing. The demand is there. You make the right stuff and people will go see it in droves. You just have to make the right stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. And Moana 2, like you said, has a huge demographic, and it's going to Inside Out, don't get me wrong, I've heard about it, but Moana had a different kind of reputation because of the culture behind it. And Inside Out 2 did amazing numbers. I can't even imagine what this is going to do. I honestly think that it's going to surpass Inside Out 2, which is crazy to hear because it just took the lead for the most successful animated movie ever. And I do think Moana 2 will do the same. I think it's going to overtake it.
I think so. It's crazy to me that the differences between Disney's studio prospects in 2023 and their prospects for 2024. I mean, this year they are the king right now. I mean, they're riding high with Deadpool, Wolverine, and Inside Out 2. They got Moana, which is I'm sure going to do a Billy as well. They're crushing it this year, But it was a huge comeback, compared to last year. I mean, last year they took a hit big time.
Do you guys happen to know the numbers maybe not like off the top of your head, but like, do you guys ever remember doing a video if they lost money in the studio like the last couple years compared to this year?
I don't know about the last couple years, but I could have sworn in 2023 they did take a loss. I don't remember the number though, but they did take a loss.
They
Yeah.
took a dip. Yeah, I can't remember the exact numbers, but yeah, they did take a dip.
Yeah, and this year, I'm assuming this year they didn't, because we got the most successful rated R Disney film of all time, and then
Yep.
we got the highest animated ticket sales of all. It's just they have to have made money this year because they did pretty damn good on the studio side of it.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I'm saying? Sorry, my throat's all scratchy today. Last topic today, guys. I want to get you guys' opinion on, because you guys know more about the parks and the corporate side of things, and I know a little bit more about the stuff. I'm assuming you do more than me, more than me for sure. But I'll start with you, George. The state of Disney right now. You hear the good things, you hear the bad things. Like everything else has good and bad things, but specifically Disney, it's always heightened because of the company. The company's, of course, well known around the world. There's Disney parks all over the world. But as far as Disney in general, the state of it, the studio, the parks, the corporate side, what's the CEO's name again?
Bob Iger.
Bob Iger. He's about to be out in the next year or so. Like, what do you think of the state of Disney at the moment right now, in your opinion?
So for me, I feel like Disney is still successful. I feel like they always were successful. If you go back to the track history of the Walt Disney Company, and you can witness it even on Disney Plus with the Imagineering story. Very, very good documentary series, which is just more based off of the parks, but it gives like the highs and lows of how Disney and the Imagineers and the company had to overcome obstacles to get where they are today. That's nothing different than what's going on here. The only difference is now is with social media, people tend to blow things out of proportion when they really don't need to be, or it's not necessary.
You have a whole grifter, like Grifter Inc. basically, right? Where it's like, big mouse bad kind of thing that goes on, like, and it's very, very lucrative. It's very lucrative. There's money to be made with that because people love Disney, but it's a sexy story to say, and they're huge, right? So it's sexy to have this headline: Disney collapsing, Disney this, Disney that. So it gets you the eyeballs because people really do care about it, So you're right, George. It's very much exaggerated, Not to say Disney hasn't had their issues. They've had issues, but we did a show with Seymour recently. Disney has year over year. I think the only time they took a dip recently was the pandemic, which everyone took a dip. But ever since then, year over year, it's been higher. I mean, they're not doing that bad compared to a lot of these other studios even. It's just they're a hot topic, like you were saying, Tones, and people focus on them, and it's sexy to say that they suck and that they're going down, So it makes people money.
And you make a good point, OG, is when 2020 hit, all these major companies took a downfall, but Disney is always the one that's in the spotlight because it's the name brand sake that gets people to, again, look at that headline, look at that title and say, oh, if Disney's collapsing, there must be something really wrong. Let's click on it. Let's read about it. Let's watch it. Let's listen. So I think it also goes to one's own individual opinion of what they classify as it being a failure, where one can watch a Disney film and say, I absolutely love that movie. Despite of how much money it made at the box office, I thought it was great. Another person could say, you know what? This movie made a lot of money, but it's not my cup of tea, So I think it just goes by each individual preference of what is considered as a failure and a triumph, if you will. I do see that, again, as OG had mentioned, Disney has faltered in some areas, specifically, for example, the lightning lane type of thing.
Yeah.
OG and I witnessed this firsthand by going to Universal Halloween Horror Nights when we had the Express Pass, literally right up to the front of the line. little to no wait. And when we say little to no wait, you didn't even have time to catch a breath. It's like as soon as you enter the line, boom, you go on the ride, or you go on the tram, or you go in the haunted house. There's no intermixed with the regular standby line.
Are we going to talk?
Problem to have.
It is. Are we going to talk about the 2 Korean girls that were making out on the escalator? Or are we gonna,
Go for it, bro.
No, we do.
You know what? I tell you what. I mean, you didn't even have to buy the express pass for that one.
I'm telling you, man. They turned me into a Universal fan real quick when I saw that. No, but and that did happen, by the way, Tones. Like that was for real. I mean,
I'm not. You guys witnessed the most shocking stuff. The stories that I hear on and off camera are fucking amazing. But go ahead.
Great. It's great. No, but George is absolutely right. Lightning Lane is a total mess. They've tried to rebrand it and kind of reimagine it like 15 times. Universal has the right move. They charge a premium. It's expensive, but that's good for skip the line services, because you don't want something affordable, because then everyone's in the fucking line, right? So you want something that's like right for like $300, so or $200-$300, so there's less people in there, and it works at Universal. Disney, they have this whole system for like $30, right? This multi-lane thing, but then they also have Universal system for like $300 or $400 layered on top of that one. So you got everybody in this line. So it's when you pay the money, you're still waiting in this gargantuan line. It makes no sense. Disney, they really have to take notes from Universal. I'm telling you that HHN was absolutely incredible. We did all the mazes. We did Late Night with Chucky, which was funny. Tones, you would love that one. Yeah. We did Purge. I mean, we got everything, George. I don't think there was anything we missed.
There wasn't anything we missed. We did all the haunted houses. We did the tram, the 2 shows, and for any of the rides that we wanted to go on was also included with that specific express pass.
And it wasn't because the place was dead. I mean, this was wall to wall. It was packed, but that express pass works like it should.
It's one of their busiest nights, right, of the year.
Oh yeah, it was packed. Mm-hmm. It was packed. But that express pass, you get right up, dude. I mean, you walk right up every single time. Awesome. It's incredible, man. Yeah, but that's the thing for Disney right now is there's some stuff in the parks. Like the parks financially are doing really well, right? But there's a lot of like little things, like operational things, which are kind of gumming up the works. I think more than anything that they need to fix.
And that's a question I wanted to ask you guys. As far as the parks and the new, Tiana's Bayou and all this stuff that's coming out, the rides, do you think they're in a good space right now? Do you think they're in a good, I guess a good, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah. Do you think they're in a good space as far as the parks? Do you think there's something they can improve on? Do you think they should take some rides out, put some new ones in? Like where are you guys at with that? Do you think it needs improvement?
We actually touched upon something of that nature when we were actually talking about our part 1 of our Universal Halloween Horror Nights, which we are going to be having a part 2 very soon, where I had brought up that Disney recognizes its faults of what works and what doesn't work, and primarily, let's just speak for the park's sake. Right. But they're not going to do not a thing for it. Why? Because people still pay the money for it. They're not going to waste their time in trying to fix something, even though they know it needs fixed. But if people are going to pay the money for it, it's like, why should we put the effort in?
I made an analogy the other day where it's like if you're having a garage sale and you're selling, toaster ovens for $400 and people are buying them like crazy, are you going to lower the price? Of course not. Let them buy it for $400, right? If they're buying it, they're buying it. Go ahead, George.
Yeah. But as far as for like the attractions go, I feel right now we're kind of like at the crossroads, because everything that was announced at D23 by Parks Chairman Josh D'Amaro, which I do believe him, for standing in front of, what is it, like between like 15,000 people saying, everything, this is greenlit, Earth is being moved, dirt is being shoveled, we're turbocharging, I know we hear that time and time again, but I do believe him because he said everything, this isn't blue sky, this is happening. But we're still missing some key factors of where these projects are going. When could we potentially see them opening? So there's still a lot of unknown mysteries about these projects. And now Disney could be doing this because there's also going to be D23 Brazil coming up. I believe it's November 8th, 9th, and 10th. And they are having different panels, and they are having a showcase based off of the parks, which tells me they're going to have news about the parks, because there's also 2 pavilions that are going to be intertwined within their convention that's based off of the Disney Cruise Line and Walt Disney World, which I find very interesting because there wasn't one showcased for Disneyland, but there was one for Walt Disney World and the Disney Cruise Line.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. The parks we're on the cusp tones of like a big expansion. They're doing like $60 billion, expansion over like 10 years or something, George. So we're getting good stuff, you know what I'm saying? But it's just they got to deliver though. You can announce things all day long, but you have to deliver what's promised. A lot of times what Disney will do, like with the Epcot stuff, right, George? It's like they give you these crazy concept arts and schematics and plans. And then it's like the end result is like scaled back. And I get it. To be fair, I mean, that project was announced right before the pandy, Yeah,
I was just going to say Epcot got caught in the crossfires, unfortunately, between what was announced and the events of 2020 on. And then also to Disneyland's defense, with Disneyland Forward, they had everything waiting in the wings until they heard from the city of Anaheim if even the Disneyland Forward project was even going to get greenlit.
Right, which is why they ended up shoehorning Avengers Campus into the Bugs Land area, because they needed it in there, but without Disneyland Forward being approved, they couldn't do what they originally wanted to do. So we got Avengers Campus. And it's a lot smaller than what we were expecting. Now, at the end of the day, it'll probably work itself out because Disney's going to expand Avengers Campus, I'm sure, in one way or the other. But it didn't open for a franchise as big as Marvel. I think it was kind of underwhelming, right? Mm-hmm. When you say, George, I mean, this is Disney's biggest franchise. This is bigger than Star Wars. And
which I think is funny because Abigail and I were having this conversation where even after the fact they open up the 3rd and 4th attraction at Avengers Campus, it's expanding, but yet still within the proximity of how the land is shaped, which basically is gridlocked between Hollywood Land, which we do know eventually Hollywood Land is going to be no more. Yes, exactly. And then also where it connects to where you go with Cars Land down to the pier, or if you go to the opposite end where Buena Vista Street is. So because Avengers Campus replaced the Bugs Land, and where a Bugs Land was placed, because a Bugs Land was only meant for like a small little piece for like the younger kids to have their attractions and what have you. So to put that of what Marvel is on a grand scale into something that small, they would have to expand, in my opinion, even after the 3rd and 4th attraction if they want this land to succeed. And I still think that requires partial, if not all, of Hollywood Land. And that's why I still am on the iffy side if Avatar is going to go into the Simba parking lot.
Now, do you guys think that Disney, because I mean, they've done it a couple times that I've heard of, do you think they jump the gun when it comes to certain announcements, when it comes to rides and lands and stuff like that? Because I feel like, especially Avengers Campus, like they announced they were going to do so much to it, and from what I heard from you guys, they haven't touched it since they announced it.
Marvel should not have been if once they found out that the Eastern Gateway was not happening the first time with the initial plan, because Avengers Campus, or even if that's what it was going to be, it may not have been Avengers Campus. It may have been Avengers something else, right, but it had to become a quote-unquote campus because of the location it was placed in. But where Marvel was going to be placed was the Hollywood Land area, the backlot area, and where the bus load-unload area currently is today. When the Eastern Gateway project got denied by the city of Anaheim, Chapek pushed them to say, okay, we can't put it here, but Marvel has to go somewhere.
Right.
So they basically shoehorned it into where a Bugs Land is. And as much as they needed it, I felt like it's a detrimental to the land itself, because it cut off their supply of imagination, so to speak, of like creativity of what they can do with the land. Because again, once Infinity Defense and Stark Flight Lab opens, I still don't think it's going to be enough. It's gonna be popular. We're going to get slewfuls of people into Avengers Campus, but I think once those crowds die down, they're going to have to do something. I think for me on a much bigger, grander scale, because I feel like Infinity Defense was supposed to be that grand e-ticket, but right now I don't know how big it's going to actually be.
Well, and one of the issues, Two Tones, I think that Disney has is that they have these events like D23, right? Which is good. It's a good thing to have the fan events. It gets fans all riled up and excited and stuff. We had a ball when we went, right, George? Absolutely. It was great. But and we met amazing people. Like we met everyone in our community. Like we met all of Diz Twitter. It was wild. But the downside to events like D23 is that when you have an event like that, you're obligated to make announcements. So what happens is you make these announcements and then things happen. Like what happened with, we had the 2019 Expo, right? And then the pandemic hit in 2020, less than a year later. And it gummed up all the work and all the plans, right? So you announce this stuff, but then stuff happens, life happens, and then you can't follow through with some of these plans. So it's a double-edged sword, right? So Universal doesn't really have that problem. Universal doesn't have like Comcast Con or something, right? Where it's like you go and you see all the new plans for the next few years. So they can hold on to their plans and keep it a secret till the very end. Disney, they can't do that. They have to show you something at D23, So it kind of shoots them in the foot. It's a good thing because you want fans to be excited, but at the same time, it can lead to problems because a company needs to make adjustments sometimes, and then you disappoint fans.
And if they don't follow through, then they screwed them. Yep.
That's why I wish Disney would kind of get the mentality a little bit of how Universal does it, is start the projects first. Just kind of give us like a little piece of like, you see the construction walls, you see maybe like the cranes and, dirt being moved, and we're kind of gives like the juices flowing, so to speak.
And people will talk about it more, be like, "Oh, what are they building
exactly.
here?"
It's like, why are they doing that? We didn't hear anything online. What could that possibly be? Then by the time you have the D23 Expo and you make the announcement and you go, "Oh, so that's what that construction site is for," because then we would then know it's signed, sealed, and delivered because they started the project before the announcement. I wish Disney would.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea, George. 100%. Now, I want to end with this when it comes to the corporate side, because like I said, what's God, I forget his name again.
Bob Iger.
Bob Iger. He is going to be out. I think within the next year or so, if I'm not mistaken.
By the end of 2026.
So, as far as the corporate side and the transparency that they have, do you think they need to do more? Do you think they need to hold back less? What's your guys' opinion? I'll start with you, OG. What's your opinion on the corporate side as far as the top guys at the top? Do you think they're doing a good job at doing what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, well, I think right now the company's going in the right direction. There's still a lot of stuff they got to handle, but I think we're moving in the right direction for sure. They just announced the other day, actually, right, George, that they're gonna make an announcement for the who the next CEO is going to be. Was it the end of 2025, if I'm not mistaken?
I believe it was the end of
end of 2025 or early 2026.
I think it's early. See, I thought it was. Wait, I'm trying to remember. I might have had it mixed up. It might have been make the announcement at the end of 2025, and then the role goes into the beginning of 2026.
It's something like that. But yeah, in about a year, they made the announcement that they recently, like just a few days ago, that they're going to actually make the they're going to let everybody know who the next CEO is going to be. So that's good. That'll help. I think that's been the big unknown, the big question mark. I think it has been a drag on the stock, that uncertainty. Bob Iger doesn't have the best track record when it comes to this stuff, the succession stuff. He extended his contract like 10 times before, and then he extended his contract like 10 times, and then he throws the keys to the kingdom to Bob Chapek right before the pandemic, right? And then he totally botched it. So it's tough, but he's got to get it right this time. But but I think people like Wall Street, I think the industry, they want to know who the next person is, you know? So it's good that they announced that, hey, this is when we're going to do it. This is when we're going to announce it. We'll see how it shakes up, you know, how it shakes out, because there's 4 internal candidates right now. Dana Walden, who runs Disney's entertainment unit, like Hulu and all that stuff. And then there's, well, she's, in my opinion, probably the one that's going to get it. Then there's Josh Giamaro. He's the parks guy, right? And Alan Bergman, he's another studio guy. And then
he surprised me, I think, like Alan Bergman, that he was like up there with Dana Walden.
Yeah, there was a recent article, I think it was with The Wrap, if I'm not mistaken, that they said that Dana and Alan are the leads. And which is interesting because Dana's always been the lead. It's always been hers to lose, you know? But Alan, well, that's a little weird. I was like, whoa, he always seemed like the underdog to me. I think that Daddy Josh, as we call him, or Josh Giamaro, the parks guy, has sort of lost some ground, if that rumor is true, because he used to be up there with Dana, and now according to this report, he's kind of fallen off. So that's interesting. But
in the report, did they say why he fell off?
No, they didn't. I don't believe they did. They didn't say why, right, George?
I don't. No, they didn't. No, they didn't give any specifics on you know what went down there. But I do want to clarify. So yeah, this was also part of that. Is James P. Gorman will succeed Mark G. Parker as Disney Board Chairman effective January 2nd, 2025. And then Disney's next CEO will be revealed in early 2026.
Early 2026. So it's interesting. And then Pitaro, he's the ESPN guy. He's also in the running. So we'll see. Those are the internal candidates, you know.
I will say, as far as like, you know, adding like new blood into the company and kind of shaking it up and like changing roles and everything, I feel like it's a learning experience of the events that happened in 2020 and on. I mean, you know, us as fans looking in say, you know what, those were some, you know, bonehead decisions that should not have been taken forth. But I do feel like that Disney can learn from those mistakes to know of how much of a pickle that they put themselves in to never, ever let something like that ever happen again internally within the company.
Yeah.
Is that a fear within the community, that there's a fear that he might give it to someone that might not either do well with it or doesn't deserve it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a fear, because I mean, it's a kind of a PTSD thing right now, because he messed it up the first time so much. And it's not, and to be fair to Bob Iger, it's not completely up to him. I mean, they have a whole succession board and you know, the whole thing, but it's still kind of, it's just that Bob Iger is the CEO and he doesn't have the best track record when it comes to these transitions.
You had to throw that in there because you're meeting up with him at Palm Springs tomorrow, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely, dude. Absolutely. You kidding me, man? Dana's going to be there too. I love Dana.
So Chapek was the original successor from Iger, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And now with the whole pandemic, do you think he was screwed from the get-go?
Oh yeah, he was definitely screwed, but you know, yeah, he definitely was. He went in there with a huge disadvantage, right? But then Chapek managed to like punch himself in the face a few times too. So it was like just insult to injury, you know. And the thing too, Chapek is not a charismatic guy. He doesn't come from the studio. He was more of a products and parks guy, right? So he got in there, and Hollywood is a real fickle business, you know. Like it's the whole Mean Girls thing. Like you can't sit with us kind of mentality over there in Hollywood, you know. And this guy comes in from products and parks, and Hollywood is like, we don't like this guy. You know, he was doomed from the start. Basically, Hollywood hated him, you know. Yeah. Whereas, like, you know, you put Dana Walden in there; she's a Hollywood person through and through. So is Bergman, right? Josh Giamaro isn't a Hollywood guy; he's a parks guy, but he has that Hollywood sort of like
swagger to him.
Yeah, he could probably do decent, you know. But yeah,
as far as decision making goes, that's where Walden and even Bergman have over Giamaro. Because I feel like Giamaro would not be the best fit to make an appointed decision based off of for the whole entire company, due to the fact of his track records just being chairman of the parks.
Well, yeah, and then you have this guy, he's coming in from parks, right? And right now is a really turbulent time in Hollywood. Like you have a changing landscape with streaming and all this stuff. It's still pretty turbulent. So now is not the time to be like, yeah, let's get the theme park guy to run everything. Like I think it's a mistake. I think it's honestly, you need a studio person right now. The parks are a pretty stable business. They can weather a lot. You know what I'm saying? The studio right now cannot. We cannot afford to get a parks guy in there and have him gum up the works with the studio. The studio is the bread and butter. The studio fuels the entire machine. You mess up the studio and you don't have anything to put in your theme parks.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And where's Chapek now?
Retired. Oh, he's on the board of some company, but I forgot what it was. I think it's like some like isn't it like a medical company, George, or something?
Yeah,
or like,
it's some sort of like yeah, I think it's like some sort of like for medical.
It's like a medical company. He's on the board, and that's about it.
Yeah.
He's a bajillionaire though. He could probably just retire and just call it a day.
Yeah, I mean, he got like a nice little what they call like a parachute type of
severance package,
sort of speak. Yeah, what was it, like $43 million?
Dude,
how much? I mean, I'm sure it's public knowledge, but with the CEO of Disney, how much? Bob Iger, how much does he make a year?
Roughly, I think the last time I checked, it was like 30 million. But then he has like a bunch of like stock stuff too, I believe.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
for
it's
sure.
like, you know, he's balling. He's BOC, balling out of control.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm glad you guys came on because you know there's, of course, like I said, Twitter's not a great example of where I see my news, but I do see the good parts and the bad parts.
Are you kidding? Twitter is like the best place to find like the
for
highest
sure
quality positive news you could find on the face of the earth.
Nothing like it. Twitter sponsor me, or sorry, X sponsor me. No, but yeah, I'm glad you guys came on because you know you hear so much of the good and the bad and all that stuff, and you know the Disney, as far as the parks, everyone knows the parks are going to do well. The studio side is always the iffy part because of what they put out every year, and the corporate side was something that intrigued me because you know you hear the news about Bob Iger leaving, the succession and stuff like that. So there had to be. I thought there was going to be a lot more drama than you guys had told me, but it looks like they got pretty much everything handled as far as the corporate side of everything, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah, right now I don't think there's too much drama. We'll see how the whole succession plays out when they actually announce who this is and kind of go from there. But right now I think it's going pretty okay. The company isn't sinking. It's moving in the right direction. Studio has improved a lot. There are some issues with the park operations, but financially the parks are fine. So I think we're in a good position right now. It's just that just stick the landing with the succession plan. And then they gotta fix some of this park stuff, like you know the lightning lane and that kind of stuff. But outside of that, I think we'll be good.
Awesome. Any last thoughts before we get out of here, gentlemen?
Not really. No, I think I pretty much said everything. Everything. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it'll be interesting to see how Moana 2 does. I mean, we're getting close now, and I think this is going to be a gargantuan hit, dude.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one too. I am excited, and you know, you hear the news of it surpassing Inside Out 2. That's a tough one to do, but it looks like they might be able to do it. But gentlemen, I appreciate you guys for coming on. Thank you guys so much. Guys, if you guys got to this point in the video, make sure you guys are liking and subscribing to the channel with notifications on so you guys are notified once a video is uploaded. And once again, we'll say our goodbyes. George, thank you again for joining us, brother. I know you were just on a plane today, but you decided to join us, and I thank you for that, bro.
The Italiano is Diz Twitter Jay-Z, man. You know, fresh off the jet. Fresh off the jet.
100%. Oh my god.
But yeah, I do appreciate Tones for inviting me on. As I said, it's always a good time coming on, talking shop, whatever the topics are. I love having these in-depth conversations, and whether we're on your channel or you're on ours, it's always a good time. And just came off the plane. It's like, okay, I'm ready to record. Let's do this.
Yeah, George is like, I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I love it. George, if you can tell the people where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There
Guys,
it is.
make sure you guys go follow. Make sure you guys go follow Vacation George. You guys will love him on OG55, and you know his fun little rants on Twitter too are amazing. Sorry,
Yep.
X. I keep messing that one up. OG55, always a pleasure talking to you, brother. Thank you again for coming on. If you could tell the people where they can find you as well.
Yeah, thank you, Tone. It's always a good time, brother. And yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Orange Grove 55, where we talk a lot about like similar stuff that we talked about today. You can find me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, Orange Grove 55.
And I'll leave, like I said before, I'll leave everything in the description below. If you guys want to follow me on social media, Tones_TV on all platforms. I do keep mentioning about the podcast that we are going to restart here soon. There's a big announcement on that here in the next day or so. So make sure you guys are following my socials. But yeah, I appreciate you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Love y'all.